the vegetables and the soup with it. All right. So you planted the yam in your backyard. It was in your backyard. You send it abroad. It takes a journey of 4 weeks to get there. They take 4 or 5 weeks or 3 4 weeks to pound the yam and then send it back to you, simply because you refuse to buy a pestle and a mortar, or you refuse to allow your pestle and mortar to work. And why aren't you allowing it to work? Your houseboy, your house girl, your friend, your cousin keeps on sabotaging the pestle and mortar, breaking it, regardless of how much you bring to make it work. That is the story of Nigeria's crude oil. We produce crude oil, we send it abroad, they send us back petrol, and we don't allow our refineries to work. And instead of privatizing them, we keep reinventing the wheel. Our speaker today was born on the 11th of March. Happy birthday in arrears, my dear brother. 1959. You don't look it. He was educated at the Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, where he was among the first set to graduate with a BA honors degree in archaeology in 1980. He also holds a Master of Science degree in archaeology from the University of Ibadan, 1984. I'm an Ibadan boy, so I'm happy with you about that. And a PhD in archaeology, also from the University of Ibadan in 1999. He's currently with the archaeology department of the Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, where he was a past head between 2010 and 2013. His research interests are the archaeology of the Middle Benue, burial practices across cultures, historical archaeology, African endogenous knowledge systems. He's a distinguished senior Fulbright scholar of the University of Texas, Austin from 2007 to 2008. Also a past vice president of the Pan-African Archaeology Association and a fellow of the Institute of Management Consultants in Nigeria. Please welcome with me Professor Zacharys Anga Gundu, who is the Pro-Chancellor and Chair of Council of the Benue State University, Makurdi. He is married to Lucy Gundu, and they have 5 beautiful children. We're going to be speaking today on the subject matter, the Nigerian herdsman and the crop farmer, matters arising. Professor Zacharys, you are most welcome, and thank you for agreeing to be part of this discourse. Thank you very, very much. I'm going to ask you to please unmute yourself and then tell this distinguished audience, first of all, why did you decide to study archaeology? And what is the relationship between the Nigerian herdsman and the crop farmer and archaeology? Thank you very much, Professor Gundu.
Thank you so much.
Have the floor, sir.
I hope you are hearing me. I hope you are hearing me. I hope you are hearing me.
AUX mode.
I can't hear him, so I think we have a technical problem here. So I'm going to try and sort it out. Just give me 2 minutes, please.
Are you hearing me now?
You can go ahead. I will hear you by the Holy Ghost.
Oh, okay. Are you hearing me now?
I can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. If you are hearing me and if other people are hearing me, that is wonderful. I actually didn't go to school to study archaeology. I went to school to study law. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yes, I went to school to study law, but somehow I couldn't make the grades for law, so I had to settle for archaeology. But I believe there is perfection of God in every outcome, including my studying archaeology. So I went and I was in the first set of students who studied archaeology at the Ahmad Bello University, Zaria. We graduated in 1980. I did a lot of things, but I have a passion for teaching and research. So I have ended up in the university.
It's frozen. They are frozen. We'll try and unfreeze it. Please bear with us. This is the power of technology. Now it's frozen. Okay, so while we're waiting for Professor Gundu, I'm sure you heard him. He said he really didn't go to study archaeology, I beg your pardon. He went to study law, but somehow didn't quite make the grades. And God somehow pushed him into this area of archaeology, where he found himself even better suited for research and for educating people and getting involved in all manners of things that enlighten the mind and strengthen the man. Okay? And he's going to be speaking to us on the Nigerian herdsman and the crop farmer. What are the matters arising? It's interesting that in the year of our Lord 2021, one of the most topical issues in Nigeria today is this issue of herdsmen dragging cattle all over the fields and bushes of Nigeria and causing a lot of mayhem and danger and problems with the host community in terms of people who are farmers themselves, and then also in terms of people who are innocent citizens. What surprises us in Nigeria is that some of these people they're very well armed. So either they're making enough money from cattle to buy the ammunition, or somebody somewhere is arming them, or maybe they are dispossessing police and soldier along their way, and they're recovering their arms. So there are many, many matters arising. I went to Ogun State the other day for a friend's mother's funeral, and the signs I was seeing on the road leading to Ayetoro was no grazing allowed here, no grazing allowed here, no grazing allowed here, no grazing allowed here. So it has really become a major, major issue in Nigeria, and not just a domesticated problem, but a serious security problem. So I'm hoping that Professor Gundu can give us the history of the herdsman, being an archaeologist himself, the background to this culture and this behavior, the reasons why we're having these challenges, and hopefully what he might think we can do or the government can do to help us resolve a lot of these things. I expect that tonight will be a most engaging, involving, and educative conversation. And I do hope that we'll be able to come off this table with some serious suggestions, possible solutions to this crisis in Nigeria this time. And I do hope that the government is listening, or some of their representatives are listening, so that they can take notes and see if any of the things we discuss on this platform will help to solve the problem. I do know that a few of them listen in from time to time, but this is a very, very important problem in Nigeria today. So, Professor, you are most welcome again. And sorry about the technology, the challenges of technology. It happens almost everywhere in the world, and hopefully one day we will get it right. You were saying that you really wanted to study law, and then you found yourself studying archaeology,
Yes.
and you think sincerely that
Yes.
this is the hand of God. So let me let you continue from there.
Yes, I don't have
yourself.
regrets studying archaeology.
I can't hear you. Go ahead. Professor, you are muted. Can you please unmute yourself? Okay, good.
Okay.
Good.
So my
All right.
reaction
Go ahead, Prof.
is, well, is not that relationship as such between archaeology, which is my discipline, and herdsmen, but I happen to come from a state that has been badly battered by herdsmen banditry and herdsmen intransigent. And because of that, I decided on my own to really understand what is driving the conflict between herdsmen and crop farmers. And the more I read about pastoralism, nomadic pastoralism, the more I became convinced that even though nomadic pastoralism was good in the past, where there was not much population and where land seemed to have been more abundant, in a modern state where the population is always on the increase and where there is personal property and where there are boundaries and territorial laws, you cannot just move about claiming right of way with your animals at the inconvenience of other people, at the detriment of other people. Because the truth of the matter is that if every other person in a modern state like Nigeria decides to move about in every part of the country, in every direction, to claim right of way with animals, there will be confusion, there will be violence, and there will be disorderliness. And that is precisely what is happening. And I think I've studied it enough to know that pastoralism is obsolete. As a way of life, it is obsolete. And it is not something which any person should actually be proud of doing. And no country should allow it. Rather, if you have animals, you have to them. Even people who chicken, they are regulated. You don't just allow your chicken to be wandering about. You keep them under lock and key. You feed them from where you keep them. Not to talk about animals like goats, like sheep, like cows, that are animals and that can do more damage if they are actually not under lock and key.
Thank you very much, Prof. But what has led to the fact, I know there are historical issues, I know there are cultural issues here and there. How come that in 2021, something that probably started about 400-500 years ago, maybe 1,000 years ago, pulling cattle all over the place, looking for grazing fields, how come that it has persisted in Nigeria till today? That's number one. Number two, if you actually know the history of how these things started and so on and so forth, maybe you can enlighten us so that those of us who are a little bit confused and don't quite understand the background will be better informed. And maybe we may have a lot more sympathy, if you like, for the people who engage in this business or in this tradition. So maybe you can tell us, first of all, the history of this Nigerian herdsmen, okay? And then secondly, how come that it has persisted so long? I mean, can you imagine driving on the motorway, A1 or M1 in London, and then all of a sudden, the whole place is full with cattle being driven by some little white boy with a stick, or you are driving on the east-west, north-south expressway from Delaware to Washington, D.C., or on to Texas, and then you have to stop because a few cattle and some pigs are crossing the road. Can you imagine that sort of thing? Or even in Dubai, camels suddenly crossing the road. So, Prof, please, I beg, educate us. What is the background to this thing? And how come it has persisted for so long?
Well, the background is quite straightforward. In truth, as a nation state,
We can't hear you, Prof. Looks like you are frozen again. I think we've lost Prof again. We must get to the bottom of this thing and learn what exactly is going on. And by God's grace, nothing will stop us from learning, knowing what to do about it. Because this is one of the issues that this government must tackle. If they don't do it, for some of us, it's a very serious issue. I mean, even in my village, the women have run out of their farms. They're protesting all over the palaces and so on and so forth. It's a problem. And people are being killed, being raped, being butchered, and so on and so forth. Reprisal actions, building up all sorts of people now who are taking the law into their hands, and almost building about a state where people are even afraid to go to their homes or go to their villages just because you don't know who would come out of the woods to kidnap you, to malign you, to maul at you, and to threaten you, and to destroy your family. So we must find a solution and a resolution to this thing. So I'm hoping that Prof will soon come back on, and I'd like all of us on the platform to please try and come up with your thoughts and your ideas and your suggestions as to what we really can do to tackle this problem and what suggestions we can give to the federal government of Nigeria that will act in the best interest of everyone, both the herdsmen, both the farmers, both the innocent people of Nigeria whose livelihood and whose businesses are being affected by this kind of thing. It's still mind-boggling to me, though, that it is still an issue. You know, it's like using the abacus to go to school. You know, some of us use the abacus. We're still using the abacus. Prof, welcome back. Please unmute yourself. And you were talking about the history of this herdsman. Thank you.
What I was saying is, every one of us came with one particular baggage or the other into modern Nigeria. For example, people used to kill twins. If they had twins, they used to kill them. The missionaries and the colonial enterprise said, no, you cannot continue killing twins. Other people had female circumcision. They still do it. But we all know that that is not a good thing and they have stopped it. Some of them have stopped. What happened in the particular case of nomadic pastoralism is that the Fulanis are not the only nomadic pastoral group in the country. If you go around the greater Lake Chad area, there are a lot of nomadic groups there. Some of the Kanuri, some of the Shua Arabs are nomadic pastoral groups. But the Fulanis are more in numbers in terms of them being a pastoral group. And the Fulanis actually came from outside the country into the Nigerian area. And their most successful outing in Nigeria was during the Usman and Fodio jihad. After that jihad, as every person knows, they took over the Hausa states and fostered Islam on them because they thought that the Hausa states had gone into Islamic practices that were really not too acceptable. So because of this, when they took over the Hausa states, more of their people came into the Nigeria area and still were pastoralists. Of course, some of them they became traders, some of them became malams, and some of them entered into some other things. But a good number of them were still in the bush with their cattle, and they provided land for these people in the emirates that were created. At independence, or rather during the colonial period, because the white people aligned more with them in the name of divide and rule, they gave them grazing reserves. They used these grazing reserves extensively, especially in the north, to the extent that after independence, they still insisted on using these grazing reserves and the cattle that cut across, especially in the northern part of the country. At that point, it was not much at all because the pressure was
Benjamin, please mute your mic.
At that point, population was not as much as it is today, and land was also much available, certainly more available than it is at the moment. At that point also, the Sahel had not dried up as much as it has dried up today. At that point, the greater Lake Chad had also not shrunk as much as it has shrunk today. But with increased environmental stress, it became very, very clear that there would be more challenges between herdsmen and farmers. And that is exactly what happened. But during the military, attempts were made with the support of the Americans to establish more grazing reserves and ensure that Fulanis were moved into these reserves with their own cattle. At that point, people decided to resist. So most of the grazing reserves that were earmarked were not gazetted because people didn't want in their own localities to have a situation in which they would take part of their own land and give it to other people. And that continued up to the time of the Abacha time. If people can remember, during Abacha, he had set up an agency that would use oil money to try to develop parts of the country. General Muhammadu Buhari, retired, was given charge of this agency. It was at that point that General Muhammadu Buhari decided to resuscitate the issue of grazing reserves across the whole of this country so that Fulanis would have the opportunity to go into these reserves. We are probably lucky in terms of what has happened with the benefit of hindsight that Abacha died and Buhari could not use the PTF to establish and develop grazing reserves across the whole breadth of this country for the Fulani, probably of the whole world. We talk about the Fulani of the whole world because the herdsmen who are coming into Nigeria today are not all Nigerians. There are a lot of them that are coming from outside the country, from other West African countries, and from Central African countries. They are doing this because of two reasons. The first reason is that much of West Africa, especially the Sahel, is drying up. And because it is drying up, they think that they can come into Nigeria and choke the country to be able to get access to grazing reserves. They are also doing this because after the Danfodio Jihad, Nigeria has been ruled by several people who are of Fulani extraction. And there's reason to believe that these people are colluding with their kith and kin in other parts of West Africa and inviting them to come into the country. Initially, when they started choking the country, they targeted three major areas. They targeted Southern Kaduna, they targeted Plateau State, and they targeted Benue. The idea was to come into these places by force. And if people could give them leg room, then they could bring in more people, and then they will begin to spread to other parts of the country. If Nigerians will remember, when this thing started in Plateau, in Benue, and in Kaduna initially, most people didn't even want to believe it. Most people didn't even want to think that outsiders were involved. In fact, they denied that the Fulanis who were doing this were Nigerian citizens. And it was good to accommodate Nigerian citizens until the governor of Kaduna State made a mistake. I call it a mistake because if he knew that this would degenerate to the point it is going, probably he wouldn't have done what he did. What he did, which I'm calling a mistake, is he moved outside the country with a bag of money, not personal money, but a bag of money, official government money, and went outside to other parts of West Africa, identifying Fulanis who had come in repeatedly to attack parts of southern Kaduna, to give them the money and tell them that, look, somebody who is a Fulani man is now in charge of Kaduna. Please do not disturb his government. Stop coming to kill other people from in my own state. Of course, it has not stopped. There's reason to believe that the money he gave them, they used it to empower themselves and then to return into Nigeria to move into other parts of the country. To the extent that today, it is not only Benue, it is not Southern Kaduna, it is not only Plateau. Virtually every geopolitical zone is involved. But there's one thing which we also have to note. As I said before, the Fulanis are not the only pastoral group in this country. If you go to the Greater Lake Chad, there are several pastoral groups. And people who know about the Greater Lake Chad area know that the area is not only shrinking in terms of water and in terms of pasture for livestock. The area is also ravaged by Boko Haram. But yet, despite the pastoral nomads of the Greater Richard area are still around that place. They have not been pushing as much as the Fulanis have been pushing from all parts of West Africa into the Nigerian area. So I think that the history is quite unique. We have a people who really do not recognize Nigeria as a nation state. They want to write their own laws. They want to claim right of way in the country. And they come deep into the country and they are claiming the right of way at the expense of crop farmers. That means that they do not really care what will happen if every other person in this country rises up to go to where he wants to go to claim right of way, whether he has animals and he has this, he has that, at the expense of people who are there. So I think it's just what I see is not different from anarchy. What I see is not different from impunity. And of course, they are doing this because they are also emboldened by government. As I said, General Muhammadu Buhari under Abacha, when he was in charge of the agency to resuscitate our infrastructure, wanted to make sure that he developed reserves for the Fulani in all parts of the country. He didn't do that. When he became president, the first thing he did was to bring this up. They brought it up, people resisted. They went to cattle colonies, people resisted. They went to Ruga, people resisted. Then they are now talking about a livestock transformation plan. And the livestock transformation plan is nothing more than the Ruga thing, is nothing more than grazing reserves. And of course, we have to also resist that because in truth, heading livestock production is a personal business. And government has nothing to do with developing infrastructure for personal business people. What they can probably do is to regulate the production process of livestock in such a way that people who want to be involved in it can get land and establish ranches. If they do that, it is much better than taking government money and saying that you are going to develop livestock transformation plan. I really can't see it working, because you cannot take people's ancestral lands and give it to other people who would just be using that to feed their own cattle. I don't think it's fair.
Thank you very much, Prof. I think for the first time, somebody has given perhaps a fresh perspective to this issue. And you've reminded us that one of the objects of the PTF was actually to start this thing. They are talking about 1993 to 1998.
Yeah.
So there was already some kind of intention by senior players in the present administration. I'm not sure a lot of people remember that. So I want to thank you. I like to believe that your information is accurate and for reminding us about this. The question I therefore ask is that there must be a group of people thinking through this strategy. There must be a group of people who are planning this. There must be a group of people who are presenting these papers, Ruga, cattle colonies, livestock transformation. It seems as if they're not sleeping day or night, coming up with something after the other to try and battle or present something to this situation. Who do you think are those that are behind this and coming up with all these policies that they're now advising government to try and implement? Like you said, cattle rearing, livestock is a personal thing. My mother had a poultry after retirement from the civil service. She didn't, it wasn't mandatory that government must provide poultry reserves. We need chicken as much as anything else. Neither do we have goat reserves and all that kind of thing. It's a personal business. You can go anywhere you want in the world, buy your land, raise your cattle. Why is it an issue for government? And why is government so gung-ho about this and coming up with all sorts of things all the time? I would like you to educate us if you have the information.
Well, what I can say virtually immediately is that any Nigerian politician of note who has played national politics up to a certain level knows that the Fulani lobby is very strong. Anyone who wants to be president, they will approach the person and they will try to make the person agree to certain things that will be done when the person wins the presidency. Today, there are about 3 powerful Fulani groups who are very active in the bush and who have interest in this. One of them is Mayate, Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria, which is MACBA. It's about the first of the Fulani groups. After that, there's this breakaway one, which is certainly more violent, Mayati Cattle Aure. And then there's the Gan Allah Fulani Development Association. The 3 of them are quite active in the bush. But there's another Fulani group that has an international dimension, which most people don't know about. I try to refer to them as an international militia. Tabita Puloaku. Tabita Puloaku is an international Fulani militia, and their own is they stay in one place. If there is a challenge anywhere, in terms of country, in terms of within the country, in terms of outside the country, they send people to respond to that challenge. And they do this because of a single reason, strategic reason. The people who keep the cows and move about them in the bush and destroy people's crops. When there is an incident, they don't fight back. They go back and report to the big people who have the cattle. It is the big people who have the strength and the wherewithal and the resources to fight back. So the big people deploy. So going back to your own point, most people who are of Fulani extraction, even when they are not in the bush with their cattle are there. Their cattle are there in the bush. So they have hundreds upon hundreds of cattle that are being reared for them in the bush. And the cattle business is a $1 billion business. It's actually a $1 billion business. So these people have the wherewithal to lobby. It is their lobby and the work of their lobby that we are seeing in terms of Ruga, in terms of cattle colonies, in terms of the livestock transformation plan. Otherwise, a country like Nigeria would have known immediately that if you keep cows or cattle on ranches, first they will be healthier. They will give you better meat. They will give you more meat. You don't need to suffer a cow from Sokoto to Rivers or trek a cow from Maduguri to Lagos before you eat it. By the time the cow reaches there, the meat is not even good meat again. By the time the cow is there, it's wretched. What you are eating is virtually chaff. It's not good enough. Anybody who is in Nigeria knows that in spite of the numbers of cattle that are being killed in Lagos virtually every day, if you go to any decent shop in Lagos, the beef you get in that shop comes from outside this country. It doesn't come from Nigeria because the people who have those shops know the standard they can place for sale in their own shop. So what really are we talking about? Except that we want to pamper a people and their own lifestyle, which is obsolete. That is just the truth of the matter.
Thank you very much, Prof. I'm going to ask you another question.
Please do.
Is this, you've called it lobbying, and you've identified 4 groups, 2 Maetis, 1 Ganalan, and 1 Tabitha Kuwaku or something like that. Is this, and you said this is a $1 billion business. Is this lobby largely economic? Because you also said that it is not the best and the most efficient way to produce the best kind of beef. So is this economic locked in the 18th century, or is there some other thinking behind it? Because you made some allusions earlier on when you were speaking of this issue.
Well, I think it is not just economic. There are also some other issues behind this. But let us not just look at the lobby from the point of view of only these groups. Nigerians who are matured enough may remember an Ahmed Joda. Ahmed Joda. Ahmed Joda is associated with an NGO in Kaduna, a Kaduna-based NGO called Pastoral Resolve. About 10 years ago, Pastoral Resolve had a budget of 5 billion to promote grazing reserves in selected parts of the North. 5 billion. And of course, those who know Ahmed Joda know his own reach. So if people like that, Ahmed Joda, are involved in things like this, it means that we have to take them seriously. But you ask a question which is very important. All of us who are Nigerians that come from communities that are crop farmers are attached to land we can call our ancestral lands. Virtually all of us. The Fulani person is not attached to any land he can call his ancestral land. The nomadic pastoralists of the greater Lake Chad area also have lands they can call their own ancestral lands. So when they insist, when the Fulanis insist to graze everywhere their feet will touch and their cattle would go, they are indirectly trying to lay claims to other people's ancestral lands for the future. That is precisely what they did to the Hausa states. Before you knew what is happening, they had taken it over. Because if the jihad was just a jihad about religion, if you conquered Kano, why would you not get a Hausa person to take care of Kano for you? It's just like maybe Adegboye, who is in Redeem, he comes to Benue, to my own village, and he preaches to people about repentance, and they actually repent. And the next person he brings is a Yoruba person from his own village. He goes to Kano, he brings a Yoruba person from his own village. He goes to Taraba, he brings a Yoruba person to his own village. Why would you ever do that in a modern state and expect that people will just keep quiet and allow you to continue doing it? A lot of people, and this is really the fear, believe that what we are seeing today is not just a struggle for pasture for cattle. It's not just a struggle for water for cattle. It is a struggle to have a leg room so that before you turn your back, your land will be taken over and then other people will be in control while you are either a slave or you are just watching them.
This is very, very, very interesting. There's a guy on the platform, Mr. Shimake Gyo. He's saying that opening Nigerian borders to the armed Fulani from the rest of Africa was our punishment for rejecting the Ruga idea.
It's possible because my friend said
threatened it, and President Buhari, its grand patron, has not criticized the attack on the farmers. So, Prof, tell me, does this whole thing receive the support of government, or tacitly or deliberately? And why is this? Does government really think that this is in the best interest of the generality of Nigerians, or is there another thinking behind it?
Well, I think it's quite clear that the government, at the federal level at least, supports what is happening. In the past, particularly in places like Benue, the police that have been called upon to intervene have taken sides with the herdsmen. If you go to other places, even the soldiers that are supposed to intervene have taken sides with the herdsmen. Then, of course, as Professor Joe has said, opening the borders to the Fulani of the whole world means that you are encouraging them to come into Nigeria and to choke this country. But more importantly, if you remember, or those who remember, would know that when this conflict was heightening, most people in the rural areas were complaining that the herdsmen who were attacking them were being supplied from the air. And if you are fighting deep into the interior of this country, the only people who have the wherewithal to support you from the air is government. For two reasons. They are the ones who can ride these choppers and drop whatever they want to drop to support or to supply some of these people, or they are the only ones who can allow that to happen, because our airspace may be porous, but it is unthinkable that choppers will be supplying some of these people in the interior of the country without our Air Force being in the know of what is happening. So it's either they are doing it or they are turning a blind eye. And whether they are doing it or they are turning a blind eye, it means they are in support of what is happening. But I also told you about President Buhari's interest into this during PTF. If a president wanted to do this and he couldn't do it because of the death of Abacha, and then he became president, and he started talking about grazing reserves. It didn't work. He didn't stop there. He went to Ruga. It didn't work. He didn't stop there. Then he went to cattle colonies. It didn't work. He didn't stop there. Now they are hanging on to this livestock transformation plan, and they want to divert so much money into it. It only means that really they are supporting what is happening. Because in many parts of the country where these attacks have been made, the Fulanis have claimed responsibility for it. In Benue State, for example, when Agatu was attacked and more than 500 people killed, Mayatela came clearly out to say that somebody in Agatu had killed Fulani cows and killed a ranking Fulani chief who has affiliation from outside the country. And of course, Rufai has told us that the Fulanis don't forgive, they don't forget. If you do any wrong to them, they resort to self-help and vengeance. And even if it takes them 100 years, they will come after you. That coming from a governor of a Nigerian state is something which we must take seriously. So I believe, yes, government is supporting these people. Otherwise, this impunity would not have continued and spread to all parts of this country the way it has done. And of course, you know, in Benue, the governor there in 2017 had signed the anti-open grazing law. And when he signed that law, the Fulani people said that that law must be reversed. If it is not reversed, blood will flow in Benue State. And of course, just last week, you know that they attacked him. They wanted to kill him. And it is only by the grace of God that he escaped. And up to now, it's the typical Nigerian thing. We will investigate it. They will not go scot-free. But in the end, no single person has been prosecuted, been brought to book with the active connivance of the federal government or active support of the federal government. So some of us think that the federal government is actually in support of what is happening. We think so.
Prof, that's very, 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 very insightful. So let me go one notch up and then ask you that if you are advisor to government, if you are in government, what would be your advice of what they need to do in the best interest of even the Fulani, the herdsmen, and the best interest of Nigeria, that will make everybody safe and comfortable so that we can move forward if we're truly, truly interested in the unity and sovereignty and the equity and equality of this nation? What would be your suggestion?
I would suggest 4 things immediately. One of them is I would suggest that livestock production be regulated. There is no economic activity of that scale that cannot, or rather that cannot be regulated. Any economic activity of that scale must be regulated. And in this case, regulation means ranching. If you ranch, it is to the advantage of even the Fulani people. They will get more better cows, healthier cows that will have more meat, that would fatten faster, that would not give them diseases. Because moving about with cows up and down exposes them to a lot of zoonotic diseases, which otherwise would not be there. So I would suggest regulation as number 1. Every person ranch. Every person must ranch. Then I would suggest that the Nigerian space should be for the primary use of Nigerian citizens. This idea that we can open our borders to the Fulani of the whole world is irresponsible. We don't owe other people who are outside this country anything. We don't owe them. So we close our borders to other pastoralists or herdsmen from other parts of the West African and Central African sub-region. Then 3, we ensure that there are consequences. We ensure that there are consequences for every action, because this thing is thriving because of impunity. It is what has led to banditry. And the logic which is being articulated by people like Dr. Gumi is simply that, oh, okay, these Fulani people, they have their cows that have been rousted, they don't have anything now, so they have moved into banditry. And that is such an irresponsible statement, because there are people in places like Benue, Southern Kaduna, Plateau State, and other parts that have been living in IDP camps for more than 10 years with their families, with nothing. But it has never occurred to them to go and be bandits. So there must be consequences for what people do in this country. As long as there are no consequences, we will not go where we want to go. And then, of course, government must cease supporting people who are doing this type of things. As I said before, we are a modern state, and personal property is sacrosanct in a modern state. Boundaries are sacrosanct. What you have has boundaries. And then, of course, there are other values like territorial laws. You cannot just move from one state to the other, especially when that state you are moving into has different laws. So these are sacrosanct values. But when you breach these values, and government turns a blind eye. Government ignores you. Government allows you to breach them. There is a problem, and people will continue because they will be emboldened. They will do it and nothing will happen to them. And I believe that that is not good enough. So these four things I would suggest that we do. And of course, we should also know that a lot of people are homeless as a result of the herdsmen challenge. And as long as you do not settle these people and return them to their ancestral lands, it is not going to work. So while you do the four things, there has to be a plan to make sure that these people go back to their ancestral lands and they are supported to settle there.
Very good, sir. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask just one or two more questions, and then I'm going to throw the floor open for other questions and comments. Okay. Number one question, Prof. I'm sure these four things that you have postulated, I'm sure government knows. They know. I think they know. A very brilliant set of people in government. They do their research very well. They know. It's either they don't agree with you or they deliberately don't want to do what we have asked. That's question number one. What do you think? Question number two is this. Now that we're in this situation and this state where there's almost total breakdown, where we're having Amotekun, everybody's now defending themselves. They're strengthening the hands of people like Kanu all over the place. People are declaring republics and everything. We're almost at the edge of the brink. Okay? And it looks as though, Rome is burning, but Nero is just taking it easy. How do you think this thing will end? Almost every other Nigerian that I see is buying a second passport. Almost every Nigerian that I see, from area boy to multi-billionaire, is ready to get out of this country. Australia, Canada, Dubai is full of Nigerians. And these people are using their brain and their intellect to develop other countries. Nigerians are the most brilliant professionals in the US. If you take them out of the US medical system, they will feel it in that country. Most of them trained in universities here in Nigeria, and so on and so forth. Britain, the same. Germany, the same. Even these days, somehow or the other, level 1, level 2 in Dubai, level 3 you see in Nigeria. At the time, it was Nigerian doctors that held the health system of even Saudi Arabia to a large extent. A lot of professors left their children, left their families, went to just do 24/7 work in Saudi Arabia just to earn a decent living. Some families have not recovered from it, even till today. What are we doing to ourselves in Nigeria? And where do you think this thing is going to end? Then my final question is this. Sorry, Prof. When I grow up, maybe I'll become a professor too. If it's not too late, professor of double archaeology, so that I can understand issues like you understand them. You really blessed me today. Is there a connection between all of a sudden you wake up, you hear some 20 children have been taken from a school, 125 children taken from another school, 400 children taken from a school in this country? It's not an easy operation. There must be at least 40 buses picking up these children and moving them to somewhere or the other. Yet, not a whisper, not a talk, not a conversation. People are disappearing every day. You see people on video, they're being beheaded, you know, and the people beheading them are standing around them, speaking in a language that we can hear, and nothing, not one reaction, not even a manhunt for the sake of whatever we want to call it. What is going on? Is there a connection between all these things going on in Nigeria?
Thank you so much.
If you have any questions, please begin to send them to the platform. Or if you want to ask a question after Prof has finished speaking, you can raise up your hand. Thank you, Prof. Let me leave you with those.
Yes, your question one. Government knows all these things, which I have tend to suggest. And really, I'm humble enough to appreciate the fact that what I have suggested is not original. I'm not bringing any original thinking to the suggestors. The solutions have been there. People have articulated that. When a government is complicit, it doesn't listen. When a government is complicit, it doesn't listen. There's reason to believe that the Nigerian government, at least at the federal level, is complicit in this matter. And because it is complicit in this matter, it will not listen. Probably if there's a way to force them to listen, if there's a way to force them to do the needful, probably we have to find our way and force them to do the needful. How is this going to end? As you said, most people are trying to pack out. We thank COVID-19 because it has slowed a lot of people down. And probably if it doesn't abate, people may not rush out in the numbers that people were preparing to go. Some of us are not going out of this country. I will not go out of this country. I'm not entirely a young person now, but I also know the history of several countries in the world. Some of them have been as bad or even worse in terms of their situation. So Nigeria is not the only person that is passing through this or has passed through this type of hard times. Other countries have passed through worse periods of time. But it is these periods of time that sometimes can bring people who are honest enough to say that we have had enough of this rot. Let us correct things. And people like you could have decided to sit down and just watch. Nigerians call it sit down to look. But you are not sitting down to look. You are trying in your own little corner to encourage conversation on the Nigerian problem. People have asked me, why are you speaking like this when you are teaching in Zaria? Even yesterday, people were asking me, you are doing this. And I tell them Zaria is not a Fulani university. I know that Zaria was built with money from northern Nigeria, and Benue is part of the place that people were tasked to build Zaria. I know about the Interim Common Services Agency, the agency that was owning Zaria and other things in the north. So what I'm saying is, yes, people will run away, but those of us who choose to remain in this country must begin to speak in such a way that there will be a common understanding on the way forward. That is what we are doing. In the process, maybe we are endangering our lives, maybe we will be killed in the process, but why not? If you are killed so that tomorrow this country will be a better country, it is better that you are killed. so that Nigeria will be a better country tomorrow. Then your third question, kidnappings, why is this happening? You see, this thing is playing out in a very complicated way. Some of the kidnappings started with Boko Haram, and they were doing that to get money. Because if you are doing what they are doing, one of the sources of getting money is to kidnap for ransom. And then government started paying. And once you make the mistake of paying to blackmailers, they will continue blackmailing you by kidnapping. But I want people to notice that the situation in places like Zamfara is slightly different. It's not a straightforward conflict between farmers and herdsmen. The thing in Zamfara, which is causing the conflict, which has manifested the way it has manifested, is gold. Is gold. The Chinese are involved in illegal gold mining in many parts of Zamfara and other parts of Nigeria. And anywhere in the world, especially in Africa, where the Chinese are involved in any illegal activity, they create insecurity conditions. People start fighting each other so that they can hide under the cover of the violence to do certain things without us noticing. How come that no Chinese people have been kidnapped? Certainly as much as Nigerians in places like Zamfara, where they are looking for gold, in places like Kaduna, where they are looking for gold, in places like Katsina, where they are also looking for gold. So it's not just a straight thing about herders and farmers. And of course, the Chinese are doing this with the active connivance of the political class and businessmen and criminals. So they bring in the arms and the ammunition, they give to people, they are fighting while they are taking out your gold. Government initially wanted to deny it, but now they can no longer deny it because anytime they are trying to look at the Zamfara problem, they are saying, stop gold mining. Anytime they are now trying to look at people who have been supplied from the air, they will tell you that, oh, okay, what we will do is there's a no-fly zone over Zamfara. What sort of stupid recommendation is that? Because Zamfara borders with Kaduna, Zamfara borders with Katsina, Zamfara borders with Sokoto. So if there's a no-flying zone over Zamfara, what stops people who are supplying these people from the air to drop what they are supplying in a forest in Biningwari, which is in Kaduna State, and then this thing is ferried to the other people who are in Zamfara? What stops people from dropping things or supplies in Katsina, and those things are ferried to whoever needs them in Zamfara? So when you say no flying zone on Zamfara, sometimes it's amazing. It's amazing how we think in this country. It's amazing.
Very interesting. Let's see if we have any questions. If you have any questions, please raise up your hands. Regina is saying there's a lot of talk about this, but nothing is being done. How do we as a people compel the government to urgently look into this issues? How do we compel the government to urgently look in these issues? That's a lady called Regina asking those questions. Prof, what's your response?
Well, as I said initially, when the heat was on Benue, when the heat was on Plateau, on Southern Kaduna, a lot of people, the awareness was not there. So the first thing you try to do is to create awareness on the reality of the situation. You know, Nigerians are very skeptical. Even when something happens, they are skeptical. Governments have deceived us to a point that we really do not know what to believe in again. So the first thing is to believe in what is happening, the damage it's doing to us, so that by the time there is that belief and general consensus, maybe that would force us into taking the collective action that we need. There's a lot of awareness now on this issue. There's a lot of awareness. In the past, there was no awareness. But now that all of us are talking about it, there is general interest in it, I believe that we are going somewhere. Because the Senate is not concerned about this. When somebody sits in the Senate, they are thinking more of their own allowances and what they will get out of the system. In the lower house, the other week, when somebody in that house wanted to place a petition before the house, drawing attention to the plight of internally displaced people in Benue State. The person who was there acting as the speaker was just ridiculing this member of the house. And no member could say, look, the regulations guiding public petitions have been met. We have not breached them. And somebody who was in charge of that house was instead asking whether the people who are petitioners, because they are in America, how will they know what is happening in Nigeria? I mean, how can somebody at that level ask, I'm sorry to say this, ask such a stupid question? When there is internet, when the person there, sometimes something happens in this Nigeria, the people outside will be the ones telling us what has happened. Information is that fast. And then you are acting speaker and you are trying to use that type of logic to gun down a petition by people who are concerned. Because if the internally displaced people in the Benue Valley, if they were as impatient as the Fulani people are, you would have had bandits all over the country by now, because they would also have left to go and be doing banditry. But you go there, they are with their wives, the humiliation, they are with their children. The children are not going to school. They don't have clothes. They don't have nothing.
Prof, I'm sorry. I'm deeply sorry. It shows the level at which we are in this country. And what really bothers me is the feeling of helplessness that all of us seem to have, and the almost irresponsiveness of the people who are in authority. My prayer is that somehow or the other, with conversations like this, with information like this, with knowledge being available, you know, the Bible says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. And for many seasons, a lot of Nigerians just refuse to engage knowledge and have information. Okay? Some people are saying it's almost a lost case. As long as we have a leadership that is supporting tacitly or positively what is going on, it's not going to change. Well, let us see. Anybody has any questions? You can just wave your hands very quickly and I will try. Okay, Mr. Shima K. Gayo. If I misspelled your name, please forgive me. You can pronounce it properly when you take the microphone. Please ask your question very quickly, 1 minute, so that Prof can respond and take as many questions as possible. Please unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. You have to unmute yourself. You press your unmute button. Can you get? Go ahead, sir.
Okay. Mashima girl from Benue State. I don't think anything will come out of this because the insecurity in Nigeria is a deliberate act of the regime, because the final goal is that before he goes in 2023, the Fulani will take over this country. So asking the government to improve security, you will get an answer which is not honest. And from the body language of the president and his spokesman, this is what I feel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Prof. Gundu, do you have a response to that?
Well, I can only say yes, the body language of the president and his team is very depressing. The body language is very depressing.
That's exactly what we said.
Yes,
Go ahead.
It will be more depressing if we give up. It will be more depressing if we give up.
Thank you, Prof. That's your simple response.
Yes,
it will be more depressing if we give up. So we're not going to give up. We're going to keep trying until we find a solution that is in the best interest of the majority of people who have agreed together to be called Nigerians. Any other questions or comments from anywhere, please? Let me watch the screen. Just raise your hands and open your mic and take your comment or your question. Anybody? Everybody is silent. I don't know your name, but it says iPhone Bade. I think you're in a motor vehicle. Please,
yeah, my name is Adebayo.
And tell us who you are and ask your question. Or make your comment.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Adebayo Adeolu, and I just felt that one of the plebiscite of 2014, 100 years after Nigeria should have lived together for a decade, are we not supposed to have a referendum, a plebiscite, for people to vote whether the country still wants to be one country? Because as far as I'm concerned, Nigeria is not one. I think through the way the Europeans had demarcated the country, I think the northern region is a separate entity on its own. And I feel that's why you see investments going to Niger, Mali, and all those areas. I feel the country needs to be restructured. They need the United Nations. They need to speak to the Queen of England and explain a lot of things to her that is affecting the country. All these groups that are formed, that people are forming together. I feel they should select a few people that can present this case properly. Northern Nigeria, some parts of Northern Nigeria are part of Niger, because when we are doing the demarcation, the country the parts of the north, they have their cousins, their brothers, their relatives in Cameroon, Niger, Mali, because the way they have cut and demarcated the boundaries, these people are totally different now from Nigerians. So from the general, I mean, we other people from the Middle Belt down to the Igbos and the Yorubas, I feel it's a different country. If you go to the northern Nigeria is more like Niger and Mali when you look at the way it is cultured and structured. So I think they have to have that referendum that was put in place after, in 1914, that after 100 years, they should take a vote in Nigeria, whether Nigeria still wants to be united as one nation, or whether they want to break into 2, 3, or 4 different entities, nation states. Thank you. That's what I want to mention. That people are not hammering on that, really.
Please,
Thank you
please
very
allow
much.
me.
I'm going to give Prof to respond to you. But let me tell you categorically,
allow me to make a
Ali's
response.
grandmother is very, very aware of what's going on, because they started this problem in the first place, and they did it deliberately. It's one of the things that we don't quite talk to. So going to the person who caused your problem to solve your problem is just going to give you what Yorubas call a rodon, and that's what they've been doing to us. They're the ones who gave us a structural adjustment program. They're the ones who gave us IMF this. They're the ones who keep telling us that today now we have to be gay and homosexual before they can give us loans and grants. They're the ones. They're the ones ruling this country. They're the ones dictating what you do. They know everything. Before you talk in Nigeria, they know it in Whitehall. They know it in Downing Street. They know it in White House. They know it, and it's deliberate, okay? So that they can take your oil without accounting for it. They can take your brain without accounting for it. They can make sure that your foreign exchange that was stronger than their own pound is now become tissue paper. What bothers me is why the average African is not thinking. That is really what bothers me. To face a common enemy. How can a strong man just leave your home and then say enjoy? When he was enjoying, most of the development in the Western world was funded by resources from China. They started opium war in China. They started slavery and all sorts of things in India. They went to America and took the Aborigines and the American Indians and locked them up in reserves and gave them drugs and alcohol and spoiled their life. They did it everywhere, including South Africa. The only thing is that somehow in Nigeria and places like Ghana, they were not quite effective. But in spite of that, they created chaos and they walked away. And we're still living in that chaos till today. And we're refusing to wake up and smell the coffee and face a common enemy. And we keep going back to them all the time for advice and for support. What advice do you think they will give us? They will never give us good advice. You understand? They will never. We can solve our own problems. We have enough knowledge now. The same way China shut them out. The same way a lot of other nations said, you know what? We will steal their technology, we'll steal their manpower, and then we'll develop our own economy. That's what Ado of Ghana is saying. I'm not exporting cocoa to you again. If you want to eat chocolate, come to Ghana. Very simple thing, but for me, very effective. Prof, please respond and make your own comments of that or to that.
Thank you so much. Just some few comments. First, I believe in Nigeria, and I don't want to ask any person to think that Nigeria is such a hopeless case. Nothing happens by chance. That is my own faith in God. It is not by chance that all of us are Nigerians. The truth of the matter is that if we break away even into 5 or more countries, we still have challenges in those separate smaller countries, especially if we go with the same mindset. we have to believe in this country. We have to believe in the potentials we have. I like the example of Ghana you are giving. Yes, it has taken a lot of time for Ghanaians to realize that where we have the chocolate capital of the world is not where cocoa comes from. And if the president now can stand and say that, look, if there's going to be any chocolate for the world, it has to be produced in Ghana, that is a good thing to do. But we also have to learn from him, because this is a country where we produce oil. They will take it out and then they will refine it to us and sell it back to us at a higher cost. So it means that there are certain things we are doing which are not correct. I really also do not think that we should go back to Britain to ask them for anything. As far as they are concerned, what is happening here is to their own benefit. When people steal money here, they run to Britain and they develop the British economy. There are a lot of Nigerians with houses in London where no person stays. They go there just once in a year, but they are paying heavy taxes there. The houses they have in Lagos, they have in Kano, they have in Abuja, they don't pay any taxes on. So I believe this is a Nigerian challenge. And we must, as Nigerians, face that challenge. We have the human capital. Nigerians are all over the world and they are the best, the brightest you can think about. So if we sit down and we want this country to work, it will work. The people who are in the way are not good enough to stop us from developing the country. They are not. Some of the bandits, they are they didn't even go to school. So why would we allow such people to do this to us, to make us so incapable, to make us second guess even our competence, to make us think that we are not Nigerian enough? I think we are Nigerian enough. And we must solve this problem because it is our own problem. If we can't solve it for ourselves, we must solve it for our children.
Thank you very much, Prof. There's quite a lot of people wanting to ask questions, but we're running out of time. So I'm just going to appeal to everybody to keep the questions short. We'll take a spate of 3 questions and then ask you to respond. And then if there's enough time, we probably will take another 3, and then we really will have to close. But let me be the first to tell you that, Prof, you must come back. And I want to thank my brother who made this connection. I don't think he may want me to mention his name on this platform, but he knows himself. I've seen him. Thank you very much for making this connection for me. May the Lord bless you mightily. So Fumi, please ask your question. Thereafter, we'll take on Eyitemi to ask her question. I'm trying to be gender sensitive here. And then we'll have Ibrahim to ask his question, or maybe her question, I don't know. And then we'll see if we have enough time thereafter to take another set. So Fumi, Eyitemi, and Ibrahim, please ask your questions one after the other. Let's leave it to 30 or 45 seconds each so that we can move on. Thank you. Fumi, are you there? Okay, if you're having problems with technology, Eyitemi, can you unmute yourself and quickly ask your question?
Okay, thank you very much, Pastor Itwa. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, fantastic. I have 2 submissions, quick submissions to make. Thanks very much, Prof, and I would like your perspective of this. Now, the first one is around the way, well, I'm looking at the way forward generally. And the first issue I wanted to touch on is the issue of restructuring. Now, we all know that this country cannot continue to run this way and it needs to be restructured. I think we also know that with the current iteration, with the current government and the current political movements that we have, that restructuring will not take place because it is not in their interest. So what do we do? Quite a number of people are talking about creating movements. But I really think that in the run up to 2023, because I believe very strongly that the APC government is gearing up very strongly for 2023 to ensure that they keep hold of power. But in the run up to 2023, I think we need to create a movement that is disruptive and that thinks about our solutions in a different way. I mean, you know, money is usually an issue in these things. I think one way around is that if we can create a mega movement, let us crowd fund and have both the intellect and the money on our side to be able to face 2023, putting a candidate in place who can actually help us to deliver our aspirations of restructuring. That is one. Then very quickly, the second point I wanted to make, Pastor Itwa, you talked about the Western world and how basically they do things that are inimical to our interest. That is true. But the truth is that in the world that we live today also, no man is an island. We've become a global village. So there's absolutely no way that we can change the story, the situation of Nigeria today without the support of the outside world.
Because of IDP, I'm working pick up
Mr. Benjamin, please mute your mic.
Yeah, without the support of the outside world. What I actually think that we are not doing very well. When I say we, I'm talking about southern Nigeria, maybe. One thing that we are not doing well at all is that we are not presenting our case on the international stage. When you listen to international coverage of what is going on in Nigeria currently, I don't know if anybody else notices, the sympathy is very subtly skewed towards northern Nigeria, which is not, I mean, northern Nigeria is part of Nigeria, so there's not a problem per se, but it's very, very subtly skewed towards that narrative. What that tells me is that they are presenting their case, and nature abhors a vacuum. If we don't present our case, well, how do we expect the international world to understand what we are going through and to sympathize with us? So those are my two submissions.
Thank you very much, Eitemi. That's a little bit of a Pandora's box that you tried to open there. So let me hand over to Professor Gundu and let him respond to these two questions before we lose our train of thought, and then we begin to wrap up.
Thank you so much. On restructuring, sometimes I wonder what Nigerians think power is all about. No person occupying the exalted position of the presidency of this country would agree to any restructuring. The reason is very simple. There's too much power at the center. Unless the person wants to commit political suicide. What I think should happen is for the federating units, especially the states, to begin to behave as true federating units. And this is why sometimes I support the governor of Benue State. When this thing was happening, people expected that the federal government should be the one who would make the law giving grazing reserves to every Fulani person across the country. Most people didn't know that agriculture is on the concurrent list. So what he went ahead and did is, he said, for my own state, if you want to keep livestock, keep them on ranches. So he has given a choice to people who are keeping livestock. If you want to keep them in Banua, build your ranches. If you want to indiscriminately herd your cattle, go to where you can do that. So I believe that state governments that are the primary federating units must begin to behave as if they are truly in a federal setup. Now they are looking for money from government in Abuja, and government can starve you of that money. If they don't want to give you, they will not give you. But if you have your own state with the resources most of Nigerian states have, and you are not thinking about how you can create your own wealth and live on your own terms, with your own territorial laws, it's not going to work. It will be very difficult if we expect that somebody should allow from the center. The senators wouldn't want it. The people in the House of Representatives wouldn't want it. The big businessmen who make money in 5, 10 years, you know, in Nigeria, with the right connections, you can become a billionaire in 5, 10 years. We know them, the richest person in this country. When did he start making money? When did he start making money? That he's one of the richest people in the world. So for such people to allow you to restructure will become very difficult. But if you have your own state, and if you are conscious, you can then begin now to say that in my own state, because I am a federating unit, this is what I will do, this is what I will allow, this is what I will not allow. Then, of course, in the second case, I agree with you entirely that we are not making our case properly before the international community. And we are not doing it because for those of us who come from the middle belt, you know, we don't have a voice, we don't have a press. And as I said, when this thing started, even the people in the West, the people in the East said, this was another problem. This was their own problem. What is our own? So they were not speaking until it started happening there. Now we are speaking with one voice. Maybe we can hold hands. Those of us who are disadvantaged, we cannot know how to approach and then approach the international community and do those things that would enable us to change a bad government. Because what we are seeing in Nigeria today is that before you know what is happening, they will say, you know, it is just Buhari. Buhari is going. So the APC is very good. It must be APC again. There must be consequences. There must be consequences, political consequences. Because if we cannot organize to change these people and put them out, and put the people who can really make sure this country moves in one direction, it's not going to work.
All right. Thank you very much, Prof. I think I had mentioned Ibrahim earlier on. Let me call him. Then we take Bukola Smith, and I'm sorry, that's about all we'll be able to take for today so that we can close. Before we close, let me say that this African Leadership Group, this Nigerian Leadership Series, today is dedicated to my childhood friend, Architect Babajide Oluyemi Odainde, who passed on exactly a week ago today. And I'm just coming from his funeral, and he was buried today on his birthday. A noble Nigerian, a great architect that really, really had a passion for this country and wanted to see this country survive. Onyiko, Tara, Ibiduni, Idunu, and all those of us associated with him, may the Lord give all of us peace, and may he protect us in the name of Jesus Christ. May he continue to make his face to shine upon us. And of course, my beloved Aburo, Yemi's younger brother, may the Lord strengthen you also, in Jesus' name. Next Thursday, by God's grace at this time, we'll be looking at the civil service and national transformation. Somebody has been saying that part of our problem in Nigeria is the civil service. And what do we do about this thing called the civil service? My mother was the first female permanent secretary in Nigeria, but by the time she retired in 1976-77, she made sure that none of her children went into the civil service. And it's one of the mistakes that we've been making, even in Nigeria at this time, because that was around the time of the great purge of the civil service that really shook the foundations of the civil service to its roots. And my father was affected. My mother was traumatized, and everybody lost hope. So we're going to be having Professor Tunji Olokwa, a retired federal permanent secretary and a professor of public administration and public policy, to speak to the issue of the civil service and national reform. I want to thank everybody for staying faithful to this platform. There's some regular faces who never fail. My friend, Mr. Palm, who is based in California, stays up late wearing his suit and tie to be part of this program. He's the younger brother of Yusuf, who was my classmate in King's College. I salute you and I thank you. And of course, my auntie, Professor Funke Ademilui, who has been looking after my uncle so well and made sure that he still continues to be the leader in our family. God bless you and God bless Uncle. I'll not mention any other names for fear of getting into trouble. Let's just hear from Ibrahim and Bukola Smith, and then we'll sign off. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pastor Itwa. Actually, I thought I would sit this one out and be quiet, but probably need to speak. Condolences on the passing of your friend. May his soul rest in peace. I just feel a little bit concerned about some of the indicators from Nigeria. Let me say, first of all, that I worked in the International Criminal Court and the UN in a number of countries, including South Sudan, Chad, Darfur, and Central African Republic. And the descent to chaos and to war, Nigeria seems to be following a similar pattern. And I'm extremely, extremely concerned. When we describe the issues around pastoralism and conflict between pastoralists and herdsmen, I would honestly suggest as a forum that we are very careful about characterizing an ethnic group in terms that may fall within, sort of the definitions that lead to conflict. I think we need to understand very well that the Fulanis are a highly organized, probably the best politically organized ethnic group in our region. They extend everywhere from Mauritania to South Sudan and to Sudan in the east. With a population that's less than 45 million, Fulanis are president in about 4 or 5 West African countries. Nigeria has had at least 2 or 3 Fulani presidents. We need to understand that they are also a group with a lot of complexity. So when we talk about an organized plan by the Fulani to take over Nigeria, I tend to throw a bit of caution there. There might be a strain of it, and I think Professor Gundu, thank you very much for an excellent presentation. Talked about the at least 3 different groups of Fulani in Nigeria. Some are militant, that's correct, but we need to understand exactly who we're dealing with and how to I think, and in the last statement you made, Prof, you alluded to this, how to overcome this within the political contest within the democratic system. People have taken fixed positions. I totally agree. I understand that. I'm Biram, I'm from Plateau State, and we have suffered a lot of, in fact, while I was at the ICC, just to give you an idea, there were more people who had been killed in the conflict in Plateau State as of 2009 than had been killed in Iraq. And you know, we're talking about over 18,000 dead counted. So I understand exactly what the passions are. But my caution is, as we talk about Nigerian leadership, let us understand that we are trying to steer our country away from war and destruction and on a path of civil discourse. So I just wanted to put that out. Let's understand the complexities of the issues. Much respect to Professor Gyo, who is a highly respected individual in Nigeria, having been a federal permanent secretary, I believe. And I just wish that we would coalesce all of our discussions around how to make Nigeria safe for all of us and how to overcome what they call the road to Kigali. Let's be a little bit.
In-depth analysis.
Benjamin, please. Okay, thank you very much, Ibrahim. Thank you very, very much. Truly, truly noted and appreciated. Can we have Bukola Smith? Final question.
Hello.
Thank you so much, Pastor Itwa. And I thank you so much, Prof, for honoring the invitation. And I really would like to also join the last person who made a comment. Mine is also like a comment, and I would like to say, I just want to point our attention to the government that we have in the country. And that is that we have a federal government. And I would say that the president is, we're talking about the president as though he is, like he can't be checked. We have a federal system whereby we have the federal, we have the legislative, we have the executive, and we have the judicial. If there is any problem, there should be a check whereby there's a check whereby the president can be checked, whereby we have the House of Representatives, we have the lawmaking body, where there's always like executive power that is checked. So I thought that if there's any issue, there would be, maybe I talk as a lawyer, and so I would believe that if there are issues, there would be such a system where there would be checks and balances. I've lived in the North. I've had to run into the bush at some point where there was chaos. And I mean, it wasn't easy. I was even heavily pregnant at some point when we had to run into the bush. My husband was carrying my son. I was heavily pregnant and we were running into the bush. So it wasn't funny at all. So I know when we had a problem. So I can say firsthand when there was a chaos and it wasn't funny at all. So yes, it's not something to look out for. I mean, to look forward to. But I would say that we can't look at the president and think that, he can't be checked. So this, I would say, Prof, isn't that something that can be done in this situation whereby the president can't just be looked at as someone who can't be checked in this situation that we are in, right now. That's one thing I would say we should look at. And we don't want to look at the people in the middle belt as minority. And also when my sister Itemi talked about the northern portion of the country as just being the ones that the outside world is just being the ones that are being looked at right now, and the South not having the voice. I don't know, maybe that's what she meant, but then she might be right. But I think also, maybe I shouldn't go into that right now, but my main point is the federal government system is what we should look at now, and to be able to say that the president can be checked. And that would be maybe where I should end it right now.
Thank you very much, Bukola. Well, Prof, over to you. We want you to please respond very quickly to those two comments. Give your closing remarks and my usual final question. If you are president of Nigeria, what would you do? Once again, thank you all for being on the platform today. Next week, we're going to be having another professor, Nji Olaokpa, retired permanent secretary, talking to the civil service. I think it's a must watch and a must listen, because somebody has said that if we cannot fix the civil service, we're just almost wasting our time. So, Prof, please give us your closing remarks. And I want to thank you again for being on this platform, to thank Madame for releasing to us almost this couple of hours, and to pray that the Lord will strengthen you, keep you bold, keep you courageous, and transform Nigeria for all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, after Prof has spoken, I will just simply sign off. Prof.
Thank you so much. I think I have to thank Ibrahim Palm, my senior brother, for his own comments. The truth of the matter is we need people to moderate us on both sides. But as he said, the situation is quite dicey and sentimental. I remember very well, and I think Pam would also remember, when in 2010, the Fulanis attacked Dogo Nahawa, just on the outskirts of Jos, for 4 hours. They had targeted this village, claiming that they had rustled their own cattle there. But it turned out under investigation that it is not the villagers from Dogo Nahawa who had actually rustled these cattle. They had targeted a wrong village. They operated there for 4 hours. They killed in cold blood 500 people. 28 of the people who were killed were children under the age of 4. There was a baby who was killed who was just 4 days old. We are dealing with people who sometimes it is difficult to know whether they are even human beings. But let us consider they are human beings, and let us consider that they want to live in Nigeria. Are we going to live in this country under their own terms, which are violent and bloody, or are we going to live in this country under terms that all of us would accept as peaceful? Because without peace, there will be no development. The young lady, the lady who spoke, I also appreciate your comments. I'm not a violent person. The truth of the matter is that if I were a violent person, I would have been in the bush. I would have been in the bush. But because I'm not a violent person, I'm just talking. I'm just talking. And whether we like it or not, we must talk before we come to a meeting point. And I'm ready for that meeting point. But I think that those who come with the sword should not compare us to live in this country on the conditions they dictate to us, because those conditions are bloody, those conditions are violent, and those conditions are not peaceful. So we should not allow it. If we do, that is our end. If I were the president, what will I do? If I were the president of this country, I will give a sense of belonging to every Nigerian, because it is the lack of a sense of belonging that is at the core of everybody wanting to leave this country. If I have a sense of belonging in this country, anywhere I go, on the basis of my intellect and contribution to this country, why would I want to pull out when there is so much potential in this country? This country, yes, people would remember, and no person is saying that Buhari is the worst leader. There have been worse leaders. There have been bad leaders. But this country has not been divided as much as it is divided under this presidency. And if I were the president, I will never the further division of this country. Because if this country were to go in the direction it is going today, I'm not sure where we will end.
Thank you very much, Prof. Excellency, Prof. Maybe you lead the movement and we'll vote for you. Everybody, thank you for being on the platform today. I truly appreciate you all. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your encouragement. It's one thing to put all this together and then you wake up and people are not responding. So I'm truly, truly appreciative. And all our faithfuls, Charles, Bambo, we thank you very much. Ibrahim, you have become one of our faithfuls also. Stephen, Gundu, is that your dad? Thank you for being on the platform, supporting him, praying for him, making sure that maybe one day we'll vote for him. Dove Momodu, thank you very much. Adetutu Ogunleye, God bless you, my sister. It is well with you. Benjamin Reza, Olu Victor, Samson Omole, Olani, Sonny Enebi, my co-presenter. Tony, the great guy. Matthew Atim, Afolabi Adidao, Mrs. Uduomo, God bless you all. Have a wonderful evening and a fantastic weekend. God bless you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bless you. Thank you.
And the crew from the back end, Olu Victor and
Welcome,
Fadekemi
Pastor
and Toby the Great, and of course Wale, who joined them by default. I thank you all very much. I appreciate you. God bless you.
Good job. Condolences all to the person.